The Curse of the Eldest Son. In a city in the United States, nestled within the diverse tapestry of cultures and communities, there resided a family with roots that reached back to the ancient lands of Pakistan. Inaya's parents had come to the United States, carrying with them traditions and beliefs that bridged the gap between the old world and the new. Their story was steeped in the customs of arranged marriages, and it was a story that would unravel into a dark and haunting tale. In the days before Inaya's parents were wed, her father had been betrothed to another woman in an arrangement that was steeped in tradition. It was an engagement that had been decided by others, one that disregarded the desires of the heart. The prospect of this arranged marriage weighed heavily on him, a burden that cast a long shadow over his future. Faced with a future that seemed devoid of happiness, he made a fateful decision, one that would set in motion a chain of events that would forever change the course of his life and that of his family. He broke off the arranged marriage, casting aside the expectations and traditions that had bound him. The woman who had been intended to be his wife, consumed by a deep despair, was rumored to have sought solace in the dark and forbidden arts of black magic. Whispers of her mystical endeavors spread through the town, fueled by fear and superstition. One day, the woman confronted Inaya's father in the street, her eyes burning with a sinister intensity. She approached him, her voice an eerie and haunting lament, as she screamed that she had placed a curse upon his eldest son. The words hung in the air like a dark omen, a malevolent force that sought to seal the fate of the unsuspecting son. Inaya's father, stricken with fear and disbelief, dismissed the woman's ominous declaration. It seemed impossible, inconceivable, that a curse could take root in the modern world, where reason and logic were the guiding principles of existence. Time passed, and the family moved forward, their lives filled with the promise of a new beginning in a foreign land. They had children, and Inaya's older brother, as the eldest son, bore the weight of the curse that had been cast upon him. The curse, it seemed, was not a mere superstition. On his 18th birthday, a day that should have been filled with celebration and hope, Inaya's older brother met a tragic and untimely end. A car crash, sudden and devastating, claimed his life, leaving a void of grief and despair that would never be filled. Inaya's family was left in shock, grappling with the inexplicable loss of their beloved son and brother. The curse, it appeared, had manifested in the cruelest of ways, snatching away a life that had barely tasted the dawn of adulthood. The air was heavy with a silence that echoed with the weight of sorrow, and Inaya's father found himself haunted by the woman's chilling declaration. The curse of the eldest son had taken root, exacting a devastating toll on their family. In the end, Inaya's family was left to wonder, to question the boundaries of belief and the inexplicable forces that could shape destiny. The curse that had been spoken into existence by a woman consumed by despair had left them with more questions than answers. As time passed, the story of the curse remained a dark and haunting chapter in Inaya's family history, a narrative that defied reason and logic. The events that had transpired remained shrouded in mystery, the curse of the eldest son leaving its mark on their lives, a reminder that the inexplicable forces of the world could not always be understood or explained. And so, the story ended as it began, with questions that lingered in the air, unanswered, a testament to the enigmatic nature of the human experience and the unseen forces that could shape our destinies. The seance began, a tentative and uncertain endeavor that blurred the lines between the worlds of the living and the dead. The girls whispered prayers and incantations, their voices carrying through the room in a haunting refrain. The atmosphere thickened, charged with an unseen energy that sent shivers down their spines. Suddenly, as if the world had tilted on its axis, the candles began to flicker with an eerie intensity, their flames dancing with an otherworldly fervor. The hands on the grandfather's watch, once still, began to spin wildly, their movement devoid of any logical explanation. Clara's heart swelled with a mixture of emotions, hope, fear, and a profound longing. It felt as though her beloved grandfather was reaching out to her, letting her know that he was near. She hesitantly began to speak, addressing him with words of love and questions that had been left unanswered in the wake of his passing. But the room was not as it seemed, and the presence they had summoned was far from benevolent. In the midst of the seance, the atmosphere grew heavy, and the once warm flicker of the candles turned into an ominous, malevolent force. With a sudden, inexplicable surge of power, one of the candles was torn from its place, propelled by an unseen and terrifying force. It whizzed through the air with startling speed, narrowly missing Clara's head before crashing against the wall, extinguishing its flame. Clara sat there, shaken and speechless, her heart pounding with fear and disbelief. The room was filled with an eerie silence, as the girls realized that what had manifested before them was not the spirit of Clara's beloved grandpa. It was a force beyond their understanding, an entity that had been disturbed and had lashed out in anger. Clara, with trembling hands, uttered words of dismissal and brought the seance to an abrupt end. The candles flickered once more before returning to a tranquil glow, their malevolent dance coming to a halt. The artifacts remained still, as if the room itself was exhaling a sigh of relief. The lesson was clear, and it resonated within the hearts of the three friends. The spirit world was a realm of the unknown, a place of both light and darkness, where forces beyond human comprehension could be awakened by a simple invitation. As they gathered their belongings and put the room back in order, Clara's expression was one of solemnity. The connection she had sought with her grandfather had remained elusive, and the chilling experience had left her with more questions than answers. The unseen forces that lingered in the shadows were not to be taken lightly, and the seance had been a stark reminder of the perils that lay hidden in the unknown. The room bore the echoes of their seance, a space where the veil between the worlds had momentarily thinned, revealing a glimpse of the supernatural. The three friends would carry the memories of that Halloween night, with its flickering candles and the terrifying force that had been unleashed, as a haunting reminder of the mysteries that dwell beyond the realm of the living. The uninvited party guest. In a city within the United States, where the streets were lit by the soft glow of street lamps, a group of adults had gathered for a dinner party. There were 6 of them, friends who had come together to share in an evening of laughter, good food, and camaraderie. The host and hostess, Sarah and David, had prepared a feast to remember, and the scent of their culinary creations filled the cozy dining room. As the guests settled into their seats around the polished wooden table, they reveled in the warm atmosphere and the anticipation of the evening ahead. It was a night meant for joy, an opportunity to escape the mundane routines of life and share in the company of cherished friends. However, the air was tinged with an unexpected chill, one that would soon set the stage for a haunting and surreal experience. Just as the guests were raising their glasses for a toast, a sudden and unexpected knock echoed through the house. Startled, the laughter ceased, and all eyes turned to the source of the sound, the front door. Sarah, the hostess, rose from her seat, her footsteps echoing in the silence as she made her way to the door. Her friends watched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, their expressions mirroring the uncertainty that hung in the air. When she reached the door and turned the handle, she was met with a scene that defied explanation. There, in the dimly lit entryway, was nothing but the yawning void of the night. No one stood on the doorstep. No footsteps echoed down the pathway. The guests exchanged glances, confusion etching lines of concern on their faces. Somebody must have realized they had the wrong address, Sarah explained to her guests upon her return, an uncertain smile masking her unease. The conversation shifted, and the guests began to discuss their dinner, eager to set aside the eerie interruption. But as they turned their attention back to the dining table, they were met with a sight that sent a collective shiver down their spines. There, among the place settings, was a 7th plate, an extra chair tucked beneath the table. Was that there before? One of the men asked, his voice trembling with uncertainty. The hostess, Sarah, who had taken great care to set the table, was taken aback by the inexplicable addition. I must have set an extra place by mistake," she stammered, her fingers trembling as she reached for the uninvited setting. She picked up the plate and carried it to the kitchen, her thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and apprehension. Her husband, David, followed, his own expression mirroring her unease. As they discussed the bizarre turn of events, Sarah placed the extra plate aside, determined to return it to its rightful place after confirming with her guests that they had not noticed the inexplicable addition. But when she returned to the dining room, plate in hand, the scene before her was enough to steal her breath away. Another plate, identical to the one she had removed, now rested beside the others. It was as if an unseen hand had set the table while her back was turned. Her heart raced as she turned to face her husband, his eyes wide with disbelief. The guests, who had been talking among themselves, were now gaping in astonishment. A collective gasp rippled through the room as they realized that the uninvited guest had not only returned, but had also brought a glass to accompany the place setting. The room was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the quiet clinking of utensils and the sound of heavy breathing. The uninvited guest had become a silent presence that cast a long shadow over the dinner party, and the friends grappled with uncertainty and fear. The guests exchanged nervous glances, their expressions filled with a mixture of disbelief and apprehension. The once celebratory evening had taken a surreal and chilling turn, the uninvited guest a harbinger of the inexplicable. As the night wore on, the group decided to play along, filling the empty glass and plate with the finest offerings their feast had to offer. It was a decision born of fear and uncertainty, a way to placate the unknown and ensure that the uninvited guest did not reveal the full extent of their mysterious intentions. The dinner party continued, but the atmosphere had shifted from one of joy to one of apprehension. The guests cast glances at the uninvited guest, their eyes filled with questions and unease, and the night carried on with an undercurrent of dread. As the hours passed, the uninvited guest remained a silent and enigmatic presence, offering no explanation for their sudden appearance. The dinner party, once a celebration of friendship and camaraderie, had become a haunting and surreal experience, one that would forever leave its mark on the guests. The night concluded as it began, with the uninvited guests taking their leave, their presence as enigmatic as their arrival. The friends were left with questions that would never be answered, the uninvited guests' true identity and intentions forever shrouded in mystery. The dinner party had become a tale of the unexpected, a night when the line between reality and the supernatural had blurred, leaving the guests to grapple with a haunting and unexplained experience. The uninvited guest, it seemed, had arrived with a purpose known only to themselves, and their enigmatic presence would forever remain a haunting and unsolved mystery. After hours, in a quiet, unassuming city in the heart of the United States, a small clothing store stood tucked away on a corner street. It was an unremarkable place by day, with its tidy rows of clothes and neatly arranged displays. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched across the city, the store would take on a life of its own. Valerie, Ginny, and Kelly were the last employees left in the store, their evening shift nearing its end. The clock on the wall read 9 o'clock, signaling the approaching closing time. With a sense of relief, they embarked on the familiar ritual of tidying up the store, preparing it for another day of business. The three women moved gracefully through the store, folding clothes and arranging them with precision. The atmosphere was filled with camaraderie and the shared satisfaction of a job well done. As they went about their tasks, their laughter filled the air, a testament to the strong bond that had formed among them. But as the final minutes of the evening ticked away, an unexpected and eerie event would unfold, shattering the peaceful routine they had come to rely on. A stack of neatly folded shirts, perched on a display table, suddenly collapsed to the floor. The shirts tumbled in a chaotic cascade, fabric spilling in all directions. None of the women had come into contact with the stack, and their eyes locked in collective surprise. The incident had transpired with a suddenness that defied explanation. Ginny, always one to embrace the unexplained, was quick to offer a theory. "It's probably the ghost," she quipped, her tone half teasing, half serious. Kelly, the youngest of the three, arched an eyebrow, her skepticism clear. "Very funny," she retorted, convinced that the others were engaging in a bit of light-hearted teasing at her expense. Valerie, however, bore a knowing smile as she leaned down to pick up the fallen shirts. "No, really," she responded with a hint of sincerity. "He's a little boy. He likes to play." Kelly's skepticism remained firmly in place. She assumed that her older colleagues were simply having a laugh at her expense. "Come on, guys," she urged, her voice colored by a mix of disbelief and frustration. "Let's not mess around. We need to finish up and go home." With the pile of shirts returned to its rightful place, they continued their cleanup, but the incident left a lingering unease in the air. As they worked, the once familiar surroundings seemed to take on an unfamiliar, almost surreal quality. The minutes ticked away, and soon the clock announced the end of their shift. The women gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, eager to put the unsettling incident behind them. They bid farewell to the store, not knowing that the true test of their beliefs was yet to come. As they approached the door, a sudden rush of air seemed to sweep through the store, an unseen presence that whispered secrets of the unknown. The women exchanged wary glances, their voices hushed in the face of the inexplicable. But the true revelation was yet to come. Kelly, in her eagerness to leave the unsettling atmosphere behind, made her way into the back room to retrieve her keys. The room was a dimly lit space, filled with the echoing silence of the after hours. As Kelly moved to pick up her keys from the small table, she saw a flash, a fleeting glimpse of a young boy, no more than 7 years old, his image appearing in the mirror beside her. His eyes held a certain innocence and curiosity, and he seemed to emanate a playful energy. Startled, Kelly turned her gaze toward the mirror, her reflection staring back at her with a mixture of fear and wonder. But the sight that met her eyes sent a shiver down her spine. Her keys, which she had seen resting on the table moments earlier, now lay on the floor at her feet. The realization that the inexplicable had taken place struck Kelly with a force that left her breathless. The supernatural had woven its presence into the fabric of their everyday reality, and the uninvited guest had made their presence known. As the women left the store and the door closed behind them, the night carried with it a sense of unease and mystery. The events of the evening had left an indelible mark on their memories, and the uninvited guest, with his playful presence and enigmatic actions, remained a haunting and unexplained presence in their lives. The story ended as it had begun, with questions that lingered in the air, and the uninvited guest's true identity and intentions forever shrouded in mystery. The store, with its after-hours secrets and unseen presence, had become a place where the line between the ordinary and the supernatural had blurred, leaving the women to grapple with a haunting and unexplained experience.